when your child is shot in El Paso or your sister is raped by someone who, as a matter of law, had no business being here anyway. In other words, that was preventable.
They're doing this on purpose.
Yes.
This is all by design, right? The Biden administration actually removed, I don't know if you saw this story, they removed the very thing that maybe you want to keep in place to help solve this problem. Razor wire that was put up by the Texas National.
We have a clip of them taking, them removing the
wire.
razors at the border.
You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
Oh, that was
the wrong razor.
A different razor guy. Here's the right clip. Sorry about that.
There you go. Should they put steps up in there?
Here you go, guys. Yeah. Hey, single file now, okay?
Sorry, we haven't built the escalator yet.
Yeah.
Our bad. We'll just get this impediment out of the way.
Yeah.
The impediment's there for a reason.
Yes.
I don't like it that people get cut up. I just would rather them not come in the first place and break the law. And Governor Abbott has, I think, I like him sometimes. He is a wheelchair guy. He's not like Chet. No, he doesn't have the thing. But he sometimes does good things, sometimes not so much. But he did respond to this on X, and I appreciate him coming out and saying this. He goes, Texas installed razor wire in Eagle Pass to stop illegal crossings. Today, the Biden admin cut that wire, opening the floodgates to illegal immigrants. I immediately deployed more Texas National Guard to repel illegal crossings and install more razor wire. Good. It should be there. And by the way, what the thing that I have maybe a little bit of a problem with you, Governor Abbott, you haven't done more on the border.
Yeah.
I understand it costs money. We're going to get to how much it's actually costing us to have these people here and why that pressure is starting to push people. You've seen New York. You've seen Mayor Adams right now. Like, oh, no, we have people here and we can't afford to kind of pay the public service. Guess what it's like to be in a border town? Why do you think we're sending them your way?
Right.
Because you don't feel the pain. You just get to look down on us and go, just deal with it, guys.
The number
Come on, people.
The number I remember back in 2017, I believe, it was $16 billion to build the wall. The highest estimate, I think, came from NBC. It was like 20-something billion. Illegal immigrants back then, so not when adjusted for the 542 inflation since then, cost American taxpayers over $110 billion.
Guess what? I have an updated number for you. $150 billion per year.
Yeah.
Is that just because of
in the services
for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what happened, right? So Dem leaders from across the nation, whether it's Chicago, San Francisco, West Coast, East Coast, New York, it doesn't matter. We're sending them all to you, and you get to see what it's like to help take care of people. When you say, just deal with it and take care of people, they've been pressuring the Biden administration, saying, hey, you got to do something about this. So the Biden administration said that it would grant nearly 500,000 illegal Venezuelans the right to work in the United States. 500,000. They're doing it under a program that was a temporary program put in place in 1990. Up until then, up until this thing happened, when he granted nearly 500,000 people the right to work in the United States, the program had about 220,000 people in it. Do you understand what they're doing? Temporary program. And then they get complaints. Right. They say, but won't having a program like this and giving them this ability to work and just to be here legally, technically at this point, so we can never, ever, ever know where they are or what they're doing and actually have them come back out of the country if they shouldn't be here in the first place? Isn't this going to cause more people to come in? No. We said you had to be here before July 31st for this to kick in. So all those new people, they'll know this isn't going to happen. I'm like, didn't you have that policy in place before? And you just made an exception to it? Don't you know they're going to want you to do that again? And they're going to flood into this country illegally and hopefully hang around long enough
to vote
so that you can do that, so that they can vote, so that you can make another exception, you moron. You know exactly what you're doing. And so do the citizens, by the way, in Staten Island. Those residents, they've started protesting a little bit because they're pissed off.
Yeah.
For a second night, dozens of protesters rallied outside Island Shore Senior Center on Staten Island, which is now housing 15 asylum-seeking families.
We should be helping our own people first.
This demonstration was tame compared to a night earlier when 10 people were arrested, including for assaulting a police officer.
I think everyone's really angry. The migrant crisis has reached apocalyptic proportions financially for our city.
Good.
There you go.
That is the most perfectly trimmed monk's cap to beard line.
That's fantastic. That should be a Manscaped razor.
Yeah, it really
ad,
is.
You know,
I mean, it's brilliant. The symmetry,
fantastic.
Good Lord.
And New York City's actually fighting in court to allow non-citizens to vote.
Which is a technicality because really when you don't have voter ID, it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah, we've been saying that there's a really good it's an important thing to have, voter ID. But so let me just get this straight. So the Biden administration is loosening up the reins on this to bring Venezuelans here. They're doing it, by the way, at a time of year when it has the greatest impact because I don't know if you've noticed, but the weather is starting to cool down in the South where it's not quite as hot. So more and more people will feel like, okay, I can make the journey. I can actually make it there without dying, which is great. I understand that. But they're doing it at the perfect time for that. So New York City's starting to fight this now. They're starting to say, hey, expand this temporary program. Only because it costs them money. That's it. That's absolutely all it is because they can't afford to do it. And now Pennsylvania is automatically going to register people to vote when they get their state ID, which they say you don't have to prove your residency to get.
No,
right?
and not only that, but we also know from when people say, "Oh, none of these court cases on the elections, none of them are won." Well, that's not entirely true. First off, and a big part of the complaints is it's impossible to purge voter rolls.
It is.
In a lot of these states. So there are people who overstay. In other words, someone may be able to get a state ID who is not a natural-born citizen, who is not entitled to vote. Their visa may lapse, and they can still vote. It's almost impossible. We went through that when we called the Clark County registrar in Nevada. He said, well, we just can't do anything about it if they've already voted. It's done.
So if we can't keep dead people from voting, certainly we can't keep migrants from voting who shouldn't be here and voting illegally. And by the way, I know what you're thinking about the Pennsylvania thing. You're like,
Joe Biden was voted for by, let's see, Joe Louis, the boxer, not the dog, Ethel Merman, and Paco Jimenez 19 times. Great.
Abraham Lincoln. I didn't know he was still around, but good for him. Yeah, right? He's probably looking good at that ripe old age. Hunting vampires, I hear. Yeah. Voters don't even have to prove the age and citizenship, even though they say they do. And here's why I say that, right? So they have a process where they say in Pennsylvania, you're going to have to prove your age and your citizenship. Well, that sounds good, right? There's no audit process. So the rule is there, and then somebody comes in and breaks the rule. We have no way of tracking that rule being broken, and so we're just like, yeah, but there's a rule.
So what do you have to show?
What?
Well, hold on a second. There's no audit. Can't you just send 87,000 new
IRS agents?
Yeah, new IRS employees. Remember, that's how they fact check you. IRS employees are not all technically. Send a third of those there.
Pencil pushers.
Yes.
Right.
1/3 of them to audit citizenship as opposed to my Trader Joe's receipts.
Yeah. I was going to say, what do you have to show to get a government ID? What ID do you have to show to get a government ID?
You know what? I'll let research pull something up on this, but I believe that there have been several states that are trying to push for just making sure even illegal immigrants have IDs.
Really?
Just state IDs.
Yes,
so
they do because
state
they say
ID for everybody.
It's oppression. It's privilege. They say they try and argue again that voter ID is racist. Black people don't think so. And by the way, the vast majority of Hispanic people don't think so. But they say no. It's much harder for them to procure voter IDs. And when you say really for black people, they go, yeah, most of them are so poor they don't have cars.
Condescending.
Yeah.
They're too poor to know how to get an ID, is what Joe Biden would say.
I don't give a rat's ass. Steal a bike.
Do something. And look, I kind of mentioned this off the top a little bit. I did some reading. I think I read this book last year about Europe's problem with immigration because it seems like they're doing the exact same thing. We're a little bit behind the curve. Europe has been doing this for quite a while, and we're taking these policies and implementing them. And typically when you implement like a new policy, when we do something new around here, we're like, all right, well, has it been done before by anybody? You know, if we're putting a policy in behind the scenes, maybe did it work for somebody else? Did it work for us? Okay, maybe we won't do this. These people know it has failed Europe. These people know that Europe has turned into a crap hole all the way up into Sweden and Finland and the UK and France and Germany in these places. They absolutely 100% know. And I think you've probably been reading about it in the news, the Lampedusa thing that I said, Lampedusa or whatever, I don't know, the island in the Mediterranean that is part of Italy that a lot of these people come to. There's 6,000 people that live there. Over the last, I believe, week to 10 days, 18,000 immigrants illegally crossed and are there now. They outnumbered the local population 3-1. They could basically run up a flag and say, "This is our ship now."
Is that
right?
true?
100% true. Not making this up. You can pull that up. We'll get a fact check from the guys there. 18,000, 6,000 residents on the island. By the way, move off the island.
Or get a turret gun. Get a turret gun in a tower.
This has been happening.
Turret gun. Screw that. Get a ferry.
Yeah, well,
I know. Yeah. Well, so this has been happening to Italy for well over a decade. And this specific island is a target because it's really close. And so what you think is, okay, let's just set up a scenario. You have something really not so good to the south, we'll say, right? Economies aren't great, hard times for people. I hate it. War-torn because of that sometimes.
What is that, Gerald, to the south?
To the south of a good economy. right? So you've got a good group of economies.
Like Italy.
In general.
What's south? That's
Africa.
not working. Africa.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Careful.
Africa and the Middle East.
Be careful.
Sorry, a little bit, right? So they come in through Greece is one of the major places that they come into. Look up some of the stuff that's going on those islands, especially Lesbos and places like that.
Yeah.
Stop it. Not that. That's not what I'm saying is happening there.
We're having
not
serious
good.
Conversations.
And then they go down into Libya. They actually come north into Libya and then come across into the southern part of Italy. Do you know what Italy decided to do? When they started to realize we cannot function well, we're going to ship them north. They started shipping immigrants north. They would literally give them tickets to go as far north as they would like to go and put them on a train. Guess what? There's no borders. There's no borders now. So you can't stop them from going there. Now the problem comes and knocking on your doorstep. Does that sound familiar? Hey, guys, they're people. They're families just fleeing persecution. You should take them in. You should pay for their housing. You should do everything that you can. Yeah. Sounds great. I'm sending you 100,000 right now. Yeah. Ready, ordered. Hey, do it.
You know, before people get mad about the whole Africa thing, because, you know, I don't know how you have an entire continent that's never gotten it right. And I don't, by the way, that's not because of melanin. It's for the same reason as Venezuela. We've talked about this in South America. It's because of ideas.
Canada
it's because of horrible economic policies. Yes, we just saw those. Exactly. That being said, right now we're talking about immigrants, right, fleeing to Europe, right, and going into Italy. You know what else happened? There's a lot of North Africans and people on the Mediterranean coast. You guys know how many people were enslaved by the North African slave trade? They were captured on the that's why they had to fortify their cities. I believe someone can bring it up. It's the low estimate is at least 1 million people were enslaved specifically in those areas. You guys know about the history with the Moors in Sicily, right? You know about that? A lot of people don't remember North African slave traders would capture people, white people. You think that all slaves were black. So when I say Africa, you think those people were slaves. White people owned slaves. The North African slave traders, many of whom were black, were capturing white people off the Mediterranean coast. I don't know there have been estimates as low as 500,000, and I've seen them as high as 6 million. Let's round it, 1 million. So back then we had North African, basically, let's call them what they are, evil people, North African criminals, right, slave traders, capturing people across the Mediterranean because they didn't protect the borders. And now, because they've screwed up their own country so badly, the cradle of civilization, also the cradle of slavery, now fleeing to the places on the same coasts where they used to kidnap people.
Yes. And by the way, the only line of defense back then against the slave trade was the British Navy. Ladies and gentlemen,
very helpful.
British Navy.
But these people, this is a parallel right now.
No, it won't stop until the elite leftists have to use
Hold on. I'm getting there, Brian. You just brought up a key. If we had like the word of the day,
I think a note was passed to Brian. Was it
like that?
1 million to 1.25 million white slaves.
Wow. Off the Mediterranean coast, so the North African slave trade. Yeah,
wow.
There you go.
It's kind of hot.
A lot of people don't know that.
No, they don't.
They don't know that. They were kidnapped, stolen, and they had to build up. That's why they had to build up. And these, you can see these structures
giant fortifications.
Now.
Yeah.
You make it a race thing. I just think it's interesting how history repeats itself. They were invading your coast to steal your people, and now they're invading your coast because they want free stuff.
Yeah. The elites are fine with it, Brian.
No,
you know why they're fine with it?
Until they have to give up their vacation home.
They don't have to give up their stuff. That's the whole point. They want you to give up your stuff.
Yeah, I know.
So what they're trying to do, and this is the exact same game plan over there. Big group of, not big group, but elites. They have a lot of money. There's a group of elites. There's a handful of people in this middle class they say they care about. And then there's a ton of very, very, very poor people. That's what they are going for. That's exactly what's happening in Europe as well. That's exactly what happened in Russia. Every communist regime throughout history and socialist regime throughout history end up with elites. And then they end up with a bunch of people that are completely dependent on them that don't really have a whole lot, but at least they have that daily bread line to go stand in that Bernie Sanders says was a good thing. Let me really quickly just tell you, though, with all of these people fleeing North Africa and going into Europe through Italy, the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni noted the battle against immigration is an epochal battle for Italy and Europe. So
what's epochal mean? Sorry.
It's an epic battle, bro.
All right, bro. That was a fake question for our viewers who aren't as bombastic.
So that must mean
you volunteered as tribute.
At the same time Texas is being invaded by illegals, the exact same thing is happening in Italy. Both are results of, not just bad policies. This is exactly the kind of policy that they want at the federal level, both in Washington and the European Union, that Washington seems to want to copy. Both Abbott and Maloney are people that are on the front lines having to deal with all of these situations and pay out the nose for it. And they start to send immigrants to the north so that they can figure out how this is actually affecting us here locally and see if they like it. And people are finally starting to take notice. So Texas is Italy? I think that's right. I think Texas is absolutely Italy, and I think we should not stop sending people north until the problem is addressed. $150 billion a year is what we pay out. I think we can afford the $16 billion to secure the border. Look, comment. Has you had any personal experience with illegal immigration in your community? Have you felt unsafe in your community because they're illegal immigrants? By the way, doesn't mean that these people are criminals. They did break the law to get here, so they're criminal in that sense. I'm saying they're not necessarily more likely to be more stabby Stabberton to you. But when they are in the dark economy, when they don't have the protection of being able to call the police, they have to form their own units for protection. That typically takes the form of a gang. When a gang is in a community, you typically feel less safe because the gang is going to do what the gang has to do to survive. That's the problem. But guess what? We have a plan from Senor Donald Trump. He has got a good plan, I think. It is the best plan. Can you please? You got to help me with it. It's a...
Look, I've got a plan, the best plan. There won't be a situation here like the Moors. There won't be Sicilians here, though. They got great
Donald Trump, when speaking in Iowa, I don't know why people still go to Iowa for this stuff. No offense, Iowans, but you don't matter that much.
You're going to need a knife when you get to the corns.
Absolutely. The Trump and the corn. So... he wanted to do the largest deportation operation in American history.
Upon my inauguration, I will immediately terminate every open borders policy of the Biden administration. We'll get it back. And follow the Dwight D. Eisenhower model. So Eisenhower was very tough on the border. People don't see him as that, but he was. We'll carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
Boom.
And I'll also invoke immediately the Alien Enemies Act to remove all known or suspected gang members.
Yeah, gang.
Yeah, that was a Freudian slip.
Gangbangers.
Gangbangers.
It's the first time I've heard Donald Trump self-censor himself. Not like this post on Truth Social, though.
Let's send them back on a bang bus.
Look at that. New border security will work for food.
Did he do
I love
that?
it.
Did he
did that. He posted that. It's not a joke. But guess what? He also had more comments. He wanted to militarize the border.
I will shift massive portions of federal law enforcement to immigration enforcement, including parts of the DEA, ATF, FBI, and DHS, all of them, And I'll make clear that we must use any and all resources needed to stop the invasion, including moving thousands of troops currently stationed overseas, guarding other people's borders. We guard other people's borders, but we don't guard our own. Think of it.
Think of it.
And by the way,
lives.
That is
save lives.
That's an appropriate role for the
Yes.
military. Before libertarians come in and I used to be one, to be clear, this is an appropriate role. It involves American security, legal citizen. And by the way, remember when we did the Change My Mind, there was one lady from a sanctuary city who barely spoke English. And she talked about being in an area with a lot of illegal immigrants who were committing crimes, and she was afraid that she couldn't actually really report them to the police. It was a whole situation where she was really terrified because they would threaten the family. So people who are here legally, and this is something you can go and watch if you, I think we've cataloged all of that on Rumble, but certainly on YouTube, Change My Mind, Build the Wall, you'll see it. We had to blur her face. These people struggle with this on a daily basis. And we actually, Donald Trump, talking about the military, I mean, it might seem severe. We have an exclusive inside look at the border brainstorming session.
I'm suggesting we put these electronic collars on all the deportees. Then we bury a wire along the border, forming an invisible fence. Now, the next time this illegal tries to enter the country, pow.
Much more effective than he was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So Trump also wanted to do something controversial, which was reinstating the travel ban that he's known for.
I will bring back the travel ban and expand it even further to keep radical Islamic terrorists out of our country. Look how it worked for 4 years. Look how it worked. It worked so incredibly.
Yeah. And by the way, the numbers back it up. He's not a numbers guy, but what he said is absolutely correct.
It's 100% true.
And this is assuming that everything he says is something he will follow through on.
Yes,
that being
of
said,
course.
no one else is being as aggressive, at least even in their rhetoric at this point.
And nobody did more during their time in presidency to actually solve this problem. Every single president that I have known in my lifetime has been told, like, hey, we have a problem at the border. We have a problem at the border. And they have been kicking the can down the road and not doing anything. One final point. He actually wanted to deny entry to people we don't like at all, Marxists.
Whoa.
I will also use existing federal law to deny entry to all communists and Marxists to the United States. We have people coming in.
Deport college professors.
Known Marxists, known fascists, and they're coming into the United States, and we don't want them. We got enough of them.
How do
We have enough of them in Congress. You want to know the truth? We have enough of them in our own Congress.
I told him he already got one. And it's very nice.
Well, he said radical Islamists. How much do you want to bet that the mainstream media will take out the words radical
and just say, we don't want Islamists?
Yeah, that's what'll happen.
No, it absolutely will. Look, this is by design. They're eliminating the middle class, like I've told you. They're creating this ruling class of people that is the only way you can survive as a lower class. Just look at Russia. It's the same exact thing. Breadlines, bunch of people living in fantastic wealth. And it is absolutely imperative that we do everything possible to get a Republican in office in 2024, and they have to follow up with what they say about the border. The border is one of the most pressing issues. I know there are big issues out there. This is one of the most pressing issues, and it is economics.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.